I'm just wondering, as I listen to you, whether you think Joe Biden's mental infirmity, which we all witnessed, especially during his last year in office, cost us anything with these adversaries.
Yeah, look, both adversaries and allies analyze everything just as we do, right? We would watch foreign leaders and how they behave and make decisions upon that. And there's no doubt that foreign adversaries are going to look at how our leaders, not just presidents, but anybody else, react and make assumptions on the basis of it. And sometimes, China's perception of America, this is China's perception of the world. China's perception of the world is that they are inevitably going to be the world's greatest power. By 2035, 2050, whatever date they've set in their mind, they believe that they're on an irreversible rise, and we are an inevitable decline. That the West at large, but the U.S. in specific, is a tired, spent, former great power in inevitable decline. And they believe that foreign policy is about managing our decline and their rise, and they want nothing to interrupt it. That's how they view the West writ large and the United States in particular. And so anytime our leaders sort of personify their vision of our problems, it only further cements that belief that they have, and frankly invites them to do things that perhaps they wouldn't do if they have a different calculus of us.
And by that logic, we got safer the day Trump was inaugurated.
There's no doubt. I've seen it. I mean, I'm telling you that, if you look at what happened with Colombia, generally speaking, if a leader had said, I'm going to turn back these planes, I'm not going to take them, we would have sent a note, a démarche, they call it, complaining about it. And we would have then had a high-level outreach back and forth, and we had figured this out, and it would have taken 6 weeks or what have you. In this particular case, we presented President Trump with options. He immediately took action. And the back channels existed. There was a lot of conversation with other figures in the Colombian government who had agreed to this, and we're trying to figure out a path to get us right. But it didn't take 6 weeks or 6 months. It took 6 hours.
Were they shocked when Trump sent out his tweet?
Shocked? No, I don't think they were shocked. I think it reaffirmed what they believe about him, and that is that this is not a traditional sort of orthodox American president who is going to be tangled up by interagency, impediments in our government. This is someone who's action-oriented and is going to do things. Is actually going to do what he says. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think they were shocked. I think it was a good reminder. And look, I want to be clear. Like, most of the people in the Colombian government are friendly to the United States. They were horrified by what was happening. I mean, there were leaders of their congressional branch over there that were putting messages on X like, this is crazy, our president's a nutcase. I mean, they were writing that. That's their internal politics. But I think it reaffirms what a lot of leaders believe about America under Donald Trump, and that is we are led by someone who is not very mysterious. He's going to tell you what he's going to do, and he'll actually do it. And I think foreign policy works a lot better when you're led by someone like that.
Now, does that make your job easier then?
Easier, no doubt.
So you can just say, hey, look, the boss has said exactly how he feels, believe him.
I mean, I think oftentimes people think there's posturing going on. Well, they don't really mean this, or they're not really going to do it. I think in my particular case, I don't have to make that argument, right?
Right.
I mean, I think they understand it. I think it's also a lot of pragmatic. I mean, every conversation I've had with foreign leaders, to the extent it's been conflictive or that we've had areas of conflict to talk about, I've been very clear, and that is, look, I expect you to do what you're doing because you're acting in your national interest. And I know you've gotten used to a foreign policy in which you act in the national interest of your country, and we sort of act in the interest of the globe, or the global order. But we're led by a different kind of person now, and under President Trump, we're going to do what you do. And one of the terms that President Trump loves is reciprocity. And it's very simple, but I think people would understand it. If you charge us a 50% tariff for an American product to enter your country, we should charge you a 50% tariff here. Maybe 55, President Trump likes to have leverage too. And who would not argue that that's not fair? And how can you argue against it? But that's been our policy in many cases. In country after country around the world, we have no access to their markets, but their products have open and free access to ours. How can that continue? That's absurd. I think anybody who has common sense would argue that. Frankly, I think a lot of these leaders have been wondering why it took us so long to figure that out. But under President Trump, they know we have.
The New York Times said, okay, you guys got away with this with Colombia, but you're not going to be able to pull that trick with Russia, with China, with Iran. If you try to sort of bully these stronger nations in this way, it's not going to go very well. Is that a fair point?
Well, we're not interested in bullying anybody, and we don't feel like we bullied Colombia. We feel like we had a deal. Colombia signed a deal. They signed a piece of paper that said, yes, send us these airplanes, and then halfway into the flight, they broke it. And so our answer was, Well, now we flew these planes. We had to bring them back to the United States. So now you're going to come pick them up. Why are we going to pay for those flights? Because you canceled them. It's not bullying. It's they broke a contract that we had made with them. Obviously, look, China has nuclear weapons. They're tough people. There's no doubt about it. They're tough people. They have nuclear weapons. They're a great power with a large economy. They're going to be a global power, but it can't come at our expense. And so ultimately, when you're dealing with great powers like China, it's going to be at the highest levels of their president and ours, or their premier and ours, and our president. And that interaction will happen. In the case of Russia, the same. Obviously, there's going to be, whatever happens with Russia will be a Putin-Trump dynamic. But I think most certainly, sure. I mean, the world is, the way you treat, not the way you treat countries, but the way you approach a nation has to be based on the strategic balance. But I don't view that we bullied Colombia, nor do I think these articles about, oh, they're going to turn to China. That's absurd. That's an absurd argument. I think the overwhelming majority of people in Colombia, a country I know very well, don't even like their president. I mean, this guy had an election today, he would lose. Well, he'd lose. I mean, he's unpopular in Colombia. I mean, that's not up to us. People there will get to vote and they'll decide who they want to lead them. But I think a lot of their people in their business class are like, what's this guy doing? This is absurd. I mean, it's normal that we were deporting people to Colombia just like we deport people to every country in the world. And by the way, if there are illegal American immigrants in another country, we would have to accept them coming this way.
Right.
So I don't pay a lot of attention. Most of the people, unfortunately, that opine on the more I have been delved into foreign policy and the more I read people who claim to know about foreign policy, the more I realize that a lot of the people we believe are experts have no idea what they're talking about.
We continue to face uncertainty when it comes to the economy, with a perfect storm brewing as Social Security and Medicare hit a breaking point as the largest generation is hitting retirement. A smaller workforce means a smaller tax base. You pair that with our growing national debt and the rising cost of living, and we could have a very big problem on our hands. So what are you doing right now to protect your family for the future? Gold can be a very safe haven in very hard economic times, and Birch Gold makes it easy to diversify a portion of your savings into physical gold. Birch Gold will help you transition an existing IRA or 401k in whole or in part into an IRA in gold, and it won't cost you one penny, not one, out of pocket. Protect your future today. Text MK to 989898 and get your free info kit on gold and a copy of The Ultimate Guide for Gold in the Trump Era with a foreword by Donald Trump Jr. There's no obligation, just information. Birch Gold has earned the trust of countless Americans looking to safeguard their savings. Text my initials, MK, to the number 989898 today. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.